Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here. Monday now, the 13th day of November 2023. As the headline says, not over yet, question mark. What does that mean? Well, we got something in the Caribbean that we need to be watching closely over the coming days. Not going to affect the lower 48. That's pretty much a given conclusion. But it could impact Jamaica, parts of Cuba, and, of course, Hispaniola, with Haiti there on the western side of that overall island being the most vulnerable to some potential flash flood problems, and then this could eventually impact parts of the southeastern Bahamas. We'll take a look at that. And then there's just all kinds of other shenanigans going on, weather shenanigans as I call it, along the northern Gulf Coast, and it looks like another low pressure is going to try to form off the Florida East Coast, and just this whole pattern is kind of wacky here as we get into mid-November and beyond. We'll take a look at that. And then, of course, lower 48 weather as well. All right, good to have you with me. Good to be back. I'm feeling much better. Probably 99.2% back to where I should be. I had a pretty nasty upper respiratory cold, very debilitating, wasn't severe, but it just kept me down. And I hate being down. There's just too much going on. All right, so enough about me. Let's take a look at what we've got down in the tropics. There's our system. Not quite an invest area yet, at least as of this recording. And when it does become an invest, it'll be 98L. 70% chance of development. Broad low pressure area expected to develop. It's already starting down there. The air's piling up. I'll show you that in a minute on the satellite animation. And then it should head off to the northeast with time. And again, the biggest threat right now is this could be a real big rainmaker for Jamaica, eastern Cuba, and the western side of Hispaniola, maybe the southeastern Bahamas. Here's what it looks like on the satellite setup for today. Well, let's first of all get a color and a line thickness that works. There we go. So the air is piling up down here, finally getting there, and there's probably some pretty heavy rain here in parts of Honduras and Nicaragua. No low pressure area just yet. This is a slow process, but that's the beginning of it down there. Meanwhile, we do have low pressure that's developed here in the northwest Gulf, and that'll be bringing a lot of heavy rain here for parts, and much needed rainfall, I might add, for parts of the northern Gulf Coast. And then eventually it looks like some kind of a low pressure is going to develop off the east coast of Florida. I'll show you that in the modeling as we go forward. Looking at the vorticity signature, not a lot down here just yet, right off of Central America and the western Caribbean. There's our energy in the western Gulf. This is non-tropical in nature, so it's not deriving its energy purely from convective sources, warm water, latent heat, that kind of thing. And down here, where we do expect that to happen, not a lot in the way of low-level vorticity bundling that energy just yet. Water temperatures, at least the anomalies, the departures from the long-term average, there's our El Nino. Of course, it's still holding strong. But in the Caribbean, where our system's going to develop, water temperatures are warm, and they are warmer than average by at least a degree Celsius. So a little bit extra energy down there for this to take advantage of. All of the tropical and subtropical Atlantic still running anomalously warmer than the 30 or 20-year average, whatever the heck it is. It's warmer. We know that. And so now we're getting late season development down in the tropics. Now, our friend the GFS over here was out front on this early, but you could argue, I guess, that it always tries to be out front. At the beginning of the season and at the end of the season, it always seems to try to spin up these systems, either with energy that comes off of Venezuela, and you see that vorticity. You can see it right there. It streams out of these mountains down here, gets caught in the trades, tries to slow down over here, converge, and off to the races we go. The GFS always trying to figure that out. And of all the years of modeling, I guess the folks that programmed this just can't get it to stop doing that. You know, like when is it real and when is it not? But anyway, the GFS has been on this for several days, as you know. One run you'd get a huge, powerful hurricane, and the next run maybe not. Finally, it does look like something is going to happen, and to what extent we'll have to wait and see together. But again, I think the biggest threat here is going to be for rain for especially Haiti. I'm most concerned for Haiti. They've got a bad history down there of dealing with tropical cyclones, even weak ones, because the rain is a major impact, especially along the Haitian Peninsula. But if you got plans in Jamaica, maybe even the southeast Bahamas, Turks and Caicos eventually, keep an eye on this system. It could be a rather messy, windy, squally situation. So let's see what the GFS shows over the next few days. You got one low pressure, you can see that right here, coming across the northern Gulf Coast, but then another low pressure seems to spawn in the northwest Bahamas, just east of West Palm Beach and Fort Lauderdale vicinity. And then while all that's happening, out here to about day 4, we got our system kind of spread out as it is in the Caribbean. And then this feature here, this would be non-tropical. And it's just a weird setup. In fact, if we go look at the upper levels just to see how that's looking, this makes total sense. There's our low pressure south of Jamaica, the divergent flow aloft, venting the air away. Just the overall favorable look to it, that makes sense to me up at the upper levels. This, though, definitely baroclinically induced, as we would say in the business, meaning more of temperature differences and energy in the atmosphere than really deriving any type of convective structure from purely the ocean and the warm water alone. So this is a lot of energy in the atmosphere. This is more convectively driven, tropical in nature, non-tropical in nature. Again, these are just classifications, but the reality is, if we go back to the surface, it looks like a couple of decent surface storms, cyclones, in the model. So what happens with these? Well, if we keep moving this out into time, the northern system scoots up the east coast. I'll show you that from a different perspective in a couple of moments. And then our other system, which would be Vince, assuming it gets named here, let's look at it at the 10-meter wind right there, see what the pressure is. It's about 990 millibars. Back it up a little bit, comes through between, we're pretty much right over the Haitian Peninsula, maybe as a hurricane through there, and then out into the Atlantic, finally merging with a front. Could become a hurricane, we'll see about that. Getting somewhat close to Bermuda, we'll see as well. And then it finally gets on out into the Atlantic. Now, interestingly enough, this is the Euro. Also, today's 12Z run, same part of the atmosphere, 5,000 feet, 850 millibars. It is in remarkable agreement generally with the GFS. So you got that low that comes across the Gulf Coast right here, and then another low pressure area, is missing a word there. The low pressure area develops off of Florida. That whole conglomeration goes up the east coast. We get a tropical cyclone developing down here in the Caribbean, and it heads out, stretched out, merged, whatever, with that frontal system, and then off we go, and we're out beyond a week's time anyway. But interestingly enough, all kinds of agreement here between the models that the Euro and the GFS both showing all kinds of shenanigans, that's a good word for it, here, and then eventually up the coast, and then something coming out of the Caribbean. And just to reiterate this again, my biggest concern is not whether or not it becomes Vents. You don't need to name something for it to have major consequences, and the rainfall potential for the western part of Hispaniola, Haiti, the country of Haiti, is certainly there. And I don't want to end the season on a real sour note, because we know the history down there that heavy rain can lead to mudslides, flooding, and you get a tremendous loss of life. And we just don't want that to happen. So nothing we can really do about it. People down there, they're as aware as they can be, but there's a lot of folks packed in down there, and you just know the history of the area, I'm sure, if you follow hurricane history, tropical cyclone history in general. So that's my biggest concern. But certainly Jamaica, eastern Cuba, Hispaniola as a whole, and eventually the southeast Bahamas. And by the way, let me just pop back on for a second. This will be an everyday update while we have this going on. We're not going to just, I'll see you next Monday. No. We'll be addressing this tomorrow, Wednesday, and so forth, because we have an active system down there, or at least we're close to it when this becomes an invest area 98L. Not there yet, at least as I said, as of the time I'm putting this together. Now, looking at it from a different perspective, this is a lower 48, just to get your bearings. East Coast over here, there's Florida, Gulf Coast, so forth and so on. And our west coast areas, the Baja and Mexico over there. Yeah, we got some heavy rain. Finally, we'd need it, especially in the lower parts of the Mississippi River, where the salt intrusion from the Gulf trying to work its way in due to the lack of fresh water. So hopefully this will help a little bit. Move this out into time. and you see that heavy rain moves across the northern Gulf Coast. The secondary low pressure forms right down here, and then it's going to try to scoot up the east coast as a front comes through. You see that front right there, easy to spot. There's our system there, comma shape to it, classic non-tropical, extratropical cyclone, whatever you want to call it. And off it goes up the east coast, maybe even becoming a powerful nor'easter, something similar to that. Snow maybe on the backside, kind of a raw, yucky weekend, good weather adjectives. And then possibly a hurricane way down in the warm part down near the tropics. So yeah, a very weird pattern here as we slide through mid-November and start towards the last third of the month. And if we run this on out, hey, that's kind of interesting. I love the lake effect snow, a really neat phenomenon to experience in person. We're just about there. I guess we could say we are there. Lake effect snow season is upon us. I'll be watching the pattern closely over the coming weeks and months, and we'll get up here, Watertown and vicinity, the Tug Hill Plateau. That's my favorite area. Buffalo. You remember what they got last year? Of course you do. Clobbered. Nothing like that hopefully anytime soon, but maybe some lake effect snows towards, basically a week from now. We'll have to wait and see about that. All right, a couple things to wrap this up for you as I get on with my day and you about yours. But before we go our separate ways, I wanted to remind you of our partnership, first of all, with QuickDam. Started working with them over the summer. Really interesting set of infographics from them. I'm still trying to talk faster than my brain. The guy that works in your brain is trying to feed you the words. Yeah, at least it's not national television with 40 million people watching. Anyway, what I'm trying to tell you, and I love the first paragraph, or the only paragraph they got here, that, it can have devastating impacts, flooding. And we've been working with these folks since the summer. And I've learned it's much more than just what Mother Nature throws at us, right? Household flooding problems, and I think about the winter coming up, and we go back to 2021 with that deep freeze that we saw in Texas, and you saw all those pictures and videos of like frozen waterfalls basically coming out of people's ceilings from burst pipes. Well, this company can help with that, because that's an interior problem created by Mother Nature, but it's not from rain or flooding from, like the initial onset. Does that make sense? So even winter weather can cause flooding problems, so just make sure you are aware. Keeping this on top of mind for you, all right? This is a really innovative company. We're going to be doing a lot with them in the coming months, hopefully years, and wait till you see what we're going to do starting in the spring during severe weather season, and then, of course, towards next year's hurricane season. I'll put a link to this tweet in today's description, just to keep you aware of it. And by the way, Home Depot, Lowe's, Amazon, bunch of other places you can buy their products already out there. It's not just a website and you go there and you buy it. They are in the big box stores doing very well. I'm glad to be working with them. Also, this is going to be really cool. I'm so proud that they asked me to be a part of it. What is it? It's the Stormfront Freaks podcast. I'm going to be on with the Carolina Weather Group folks, and I'm going to be joining just a veritable who's who in the weather business here for a telethon to help raise money for the American Red Cross. These are the different people that are going to be on. And some of these folks you probably haven't heard much from because they're kind of quiet. They are. They do their work. You know their work because it's amazing, but you don't really hear much from them. And I think you know who I'm talking about, right? And I can't wait to hear from them myself. Some of these folks you know of course, from their incredible work that you see on TV a lot. I think that tweet right there says all you need to know about that. And then there's yours truly. I'll be on as well. That my time slot will be, I think, Saturday evening. I think it's about 8:30 or so. Reed Timmer will be on as well. So be sure to follow the Stormfront Freaks podcast over here on Twitter, and you can be notified and whatever when they do all kinds of stuff. I've been on the show numerous times over the years, and I think what they're doing here to raise some money is super duper fantastic, and I'm looking forward to be a part of it. All right. Very good. Let's get me back on here so I can sign out. Again, I will be back tomorrow because we got active weather down there, and I'm not going to be taking the week off and just lollygagging. We got work to do. I'm back to feeling much, much better. The coughing and all that is pretty much gone, thank goodness. And we're going to really be focusing on what will eventually be 98L, and then probably tropical storm, maybe Hurricane Vince. That could be that's a little further out in time. We'll see about that. But it's not over yet, and we will probably eventually change that to an exclamation point from a question mark. That's a good way to segue into the end, right? All right, as always, thank you for tuning in and giving me a piece of your day. I appreciate it. I hope you learned something, as always, as well. And from all of us, the family here at Hurricane Track, we appreciate your time. I'm Mark Sudduth. I'll be back with more for you tomorrow.